I'm Stefan Baumann, and I want to welcome you to another video. This particular video has to do with a passion of mine, and that is the sense of place. When artists go out to paint, they get so excited about being there that they just jump in. And in my book, I talk about setting up for a sense of place, how to go about doing it. What is a sense of place? A sense of place is one of the most important aspects of setting up your painting. It's like staging it. You have to make the viewer feel like they're part of the environment. So sit back and relax and enjoy this little video on a sense of place. Here, what we have is a sense of place. The difference between this feeling and the feeling of that is that the viewer doesn't get a sense of where they are in the picture. Are we climbing a tree? Are we sitting on a patio looking across at a forest? So getting a sense of place is really, really crucial. It's oftentimes really hard. For artists that would do a scene like this, they run out of space. So if you're out there painting and you start painting a scene like this, you're going to have to start off thinking, oh, I need to do something. And this is really important when it comes to doing places like the Grand Canyon. When you're doing the Grand Canyon, every class that I took to the Grand Canyon, they would go out there and they would paint the Grand Canyon, and it would be this big mountain, and then all of a sudden they had no foreground. And so it looked like you were kind of like floating by in a balloon looking at something, and it wasn't really grounded. Now, it's okay. It's especially okay in photography because we kind of accept it. But back in the olden days, artists were pretty much taught to be like theater people. It was like you set up a stage, and the painting wasn't just this section. And when people run around with those little viewfinders looking through the thing that you kind of have to get is that you're in a place. And so you need to kind of make the viewer feel like they're standing there with you. You're trying to recreate your experience. You're not floating on a balloon. You're not sitting in a patio 6 feet up looking at the forest. You're actually like in a place and you're aware of your surroundings. Our brain takes all this in and stitches it together, and we're there. With the advent of photography, though, we've kind of accepted that. We look at little viewfinders and stuff and go, oh, yeah, there's a spot. And they sit there for hours looking through the viewfinder, trying to make sense of their world. And then they come back and they wonder, why doesn't it feel as grand as I was there? It's because you were looking at a little tiny viewfinder. And besides, you get really tired holding the viewfinder up while you're trying to do it. So if you're creating a composition, the first thing you have to do is that you have to get hold of the foreground. You have to make the viewer feel. So I took a picture of me painting in the Grand Canyon so this is an episode of the Grand View when we were filming the Grand Canyon episode. So it is on YouTube. If you were to watch it, you could watch this painting completed, but this was for my PBS television show. And as you notice on the top left-hand corner, I had darker hair and more of it. And, so it was a long time ago. But one thing I did learn early on is that when you paint in big, grand areas, you start with the foreground. Notice that. I put a horizon line out here, and I put the foreground in here. When you start with the foreground like that, you get a feeling or a sense of place that you get where we're standing, you get a feeling for that. And by the time you start putting all the elements behind this, the next mountain, these mountains end up being really small, that if you don't get a mental picture of how small they actually are, these peaks back here are like this size, like this big. They're really small.
Yeah, I remember you saying that when you put the foreground in like that, it really helps you get the proportion of whatever is behind it.
Yeah.
And if you start from the back, you do the sky and then you do the edge of the canyon and whatever. By the time you get to the front, like it's all blown out of proportion. So
Yeah, you have no more space and the
yeah,
thing is, it is the most common thing. I grew up in Lake Tahoe, and I lived there all my life. Until I was 21, that's where we lived. And I was a painter then in training. And I would watch all these would-be painters go to Lake Tahoe and paint the scene in Lake Tahoe. And they would have this huge, massive lake. And then barely any foreground, if any, little trees popping up, little rocks popping up in the front. And the thing is, when you actually look at Lake Tahoe by itself, that big, vast openness, it's boring. It's just one big blue water thing. And one of my rules that we talk about in the book is less than 10% water. And when we get to the water section, I'll tell you why that is. But the foreground is what makes Lake Tahoe. It's the big boulders and what they have left of the trees and our situation of that. When we go to the Grand Canyon, yes, we're just in awe of the beauty of the Grand Canyon. But what really sets things up and the scale for things is the foreground, how tiny we are to the rest of the world. And if we don't do that, it's just a big mountain floating on top of a sea of blue. Yeah, and a lot of my students, this was actually done in my workshop. Mary was there. She took the pictures. This isn't behind my house. So if you guys wonder if it's beautiful in Mount Shasta, take a gander. It's pretty nice. And so this is like, a small little hike behind where we are. And that's actually the same view I have from my ranch. But, notice the trees are coming in. And this is the common mistake that everybody does. They'll go out there, they're so excited about being there, and then they blow everything up, and then lo and behold, they get to the front of the painting and there's no room to do anything. So what I suggest, even at the beginning of the workshop, I suggest start with drawing the foreground in. So you could see here in this photograph, we actually have the meadow and the trees. And so this kind of sets us onto the earth, or gives us a sense of place of being in the picture. Now we understand where we're at and where we're sitting. We still have the grandeur of the painting, and we actually get more of a theatrical view, something that's a little bit more pleasing to look, because a really good painting should have a foreground, middle ground, background. You see how fascinating it is. If you start off a painting correctly on location, you can actually come back with something of value. So if you like this video, I actually wrote a book on plein air painting. It's the Baumann Field Guide to Plein Air Painting. It is chock full of that. And sense of place is one of the keys that we actually have highlighted, the 13 keys. If you want to learn how to paint, you have to look for people who've spent their lifetimes like I have to give you the information. Otherwise, it will take you years to understand all of this stuff. And watching all the videos in the world isn't going to get you there. Join my Patreon, organize your thoughts, figure out how to do this painting, get my book, call me for coaching. For heaven's sakes, you could sit and spend hours and hours and hours and years and years and years trying to watch all these videos out there from everybody. And chances are everything you need to know is inside of you. You just need somebody that will sit and listen and find out what's missing and get rid of some of the stuff that doesn't matter. So give me a call at 415-606-9074. I look forward to being your coach. Not your teacher, your coach. Completely different level of education. So anyway, so till we meet again on another video, I'm Stefan Baumann, and thank you for watching. I'm Stefan Baumann, and I would love to introduce you to a new book that I just wrote on plein air painting. After 40 years, I finally sat down with one of the best authors that I could possibly imagine for this project and put together everything I know about painting outdoors. And this isn't just an outdoor painting book. No, these are techniques that you can bring into the studio, and they apply to watercolors, acrylics, gouache, and oil. You will be amazed at what you will learn with every turn of the page, every paragraph. We have worked through my videos, my information, my books, my blogs, and brought it all together. And over 2 years of editing, we brought it down to just the facts. This painting book has over 400 pages and almost 500 illustrations. If you see my videos, and if you read my blog, and you follow me on YouTube, you know that there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things you don't know that you don't know. I'm amazed at the quality of this book, the pages. It's a field guide. It's a book that you would take outdoors with you and paint on location. It's been organized so you could find your way through my keys. This book explains 40 years of teaching and knowledge one-on-one. All the information that I possibly know about painting is in this book. So run, don't walk, and order this book today.
Get this book. It's awesome.
Beginner plein air painter, I've been struggling with a few things with my art and just couldn't quite get it right. It was always something missing. Got my hands on this book here, The Field Guide to Plein Air Painting, and I just skimmed through it a couple times and saw a bit about organizing your palette and temperatures. And it made a world of difference in everything it is that I'm doing now. So if you get a chance, go buy this book, The Field Guide to Plein Air Painting. It has truly changed the way that I'm seeing things and the way that I'm painting now. Get this book. It is phenomenal.